Hello and welcome to the Repurpose Your Purpose podcast. My name is Aurora Menegallo, and I'm here to inspire you to do or grow the work you love. And today I'm super excited because I am gonna talk to who is probably, I think, maybe the person I've known the longest in the United States.
Oh,
My good friend Krista. Hey, Krista.
hey, Oro. My goodness, I have that distinction too. I feel so honored to be that person for you. I feel like you have achieved so much here in the States, and I have known you a long time. It's so awesome.
Yeah, you known me when I was a clueless teenager, so let's never talk about that ever.
You're adorable, and you just have blossomed.
Oh my God, well, can you believe we're here recording a podcast and they didn't
I
even
can.
exist podcasts. Anyway, I let's stick to the plan here. Before I start asking you a bunch of questions, I really want to introduce all your work to my audience. So I am going to read your bio, which is there's so much, and then of course you'll get into it with us. But here it is.
Mhm.
Christa Núñez is the founder and director of CAN Cooperative Media, The Learning Farm, and its non-profit sister organization, Khuba International. She operates the STEAM in Nature program at the Learning Farm, spearheads the literacy initiative Ubuntu Library that centers narratives of people of color, and directs Quarter Acre for the People, a food justice focused program for youth and family farming education and land governance. Through her PhD studies in global development at Cornell University and in her for and nonprofit organizations, as well as with community organizations such as her church and Black Farmers United, Krista works to diversify farming and scholarly landscapes and prioritizes the increase of equity in landholdings. In order to create sustainable food, land, and nature systems for systemically urbanized and displaced youth and families, this work includes the uplifting of stories that center people of color in dignity affirming ways. All right. Wow. One of my questions is going to be about how you do all of this, but I don't want to start with that. I actually want to start with something that's to me is like really important in general, and I'm really curious about you, and that is like, what is the thread that connects all these projects and your interests and the things you're involved in and creating?
The thread that connects all of these projects together really is about love of people and love of community members, especially the vulnerable, people who have been pushed out and fallen through the cracks, people who are targeted for different reasons, and also children and women, and just love for planet Earth and our environment. Oh boy, I have a child. Can you shut that door, boo boo? I'm recording a podcast with my friend Aurora. Ask Papa every question you need to ask is Papa. Don't come in here. Hannah, one, I'm gonna count and you need to be out that door. And shut the door, please. Thank you. Don't let anybody else come in here, please. Shut that door. Thank you. Hey, Makia. No, no.
What were you saying about children?
Love of children. No, I think no, like what was I saying? I think ultimately the through line is that I started all of these initiatives with children and families in mind and community members who need support and need to get a leg up and need a hand. And so I, being one of those people, I've needed help throughout my life and really have relied upon people who have used their power for good and used their power to help me as a young person, as a struggling person. To have access to opportunities that I wouldn't have before, and knowing how meaningful it was for me to receive support at critical moments in my life. These initiatives were really about figuring out who those community members are and doing the same that was done for me. And I think another through line is just being able to work with other women who and other people who believe in self-sacrifice and generosity and who are hardworking. And all of these initiatives are about creating a new and better world for everybody, and including future generations.
Wow. And I love that it's about nature and food and play and discovery. And one thing that I want to ask you is, when we met, I was studying filmmaking. You had just graduated, I think, maybe, or, right. So that was a really big jump from media. You were working in media, going to like having a farm and working with food. And I would really love to hear what was that moment where you kind of felt like, I'm gonna get a farm on the other side of the country. Yeah.
It's crazy. That's a great question. Sometimes I'm like, what really motivated us? I think it was kind of part pushing out and part pulling in. I think at that time, so I had a media business. I had worked in film and television for a long time, living in Northern California with all the fires and how expensive land was, and all of these things that kind of were making, a lot of clients of mine from my media firm really suffering in terms of their abilities to serve communities when there's these, horrible weather events and just unreliable and in sort of volatile economic markets. Um, and big question marks in terms of who could want to live there, who could be new community members and new business, and who like a lot of people leaving in droves, and so having this sort of volatility, and us also living in a place where I wanted more diversity, more international community. We wanted a little bit more um, than where we were living. After I had children, it really became clear, like the region we were living in wasn't necessarily reflective of what we wanted. So there was kind of a push out, like there might be something else that might be a better fit for you out there. And then my mother, who was always looking out for us, ended up hearing about an opportunity in New York State, where they partner you with a university to help develop your business, and you have some tax breaks. And it was this program. We ended up kind of feeling it out and meeting with some people at Cornell, and they had a food venture center, and some wonderful people that were like, oh, your business sounds amazing. We'd love to help incubate your juice business. And we kind of thinking about a product along with the farming, and ended up kind of being pulled into this wonderful opportunity to start a new line of fruit and fruit and vegetable juice line here, and for marketed for children to be able to have really healthy fruit and vegetable juices, and nutrients that are organically and locally processed. So that it was like, okay, California wasn't really a fit at that time, and New York had all these other opportunities, and we kind of made the shift. And I think even before that, leaving California, Pete and I, my husband, had been thinking about a business we could do together. He didn't really have a media background. Both of us were really falling in love with the redwoods and the forest, and learning about agriculture in California, being this agricultural giant, and wanting to feed our kids sustainably. And they love berries, and we had a cherry tree, and we used to pick back blackberries, and just having some friends who had farms. And the idea was, even though we can afford a house here, but we can't really afford a farm here. The people who we know that farm here have been inheritors of land and of farm businesses, but haven't really had the resources to be able to purchase new farms, because that's just untenable unless you are a millionaire in California. And so we were like, we would love to be able to raise our children on a farm and give them the opportunity to pick berries to their heart's content, and climb apple trees and eat apples, and me not having the burden of having to shop for every scrap of food we eat. Having things growing here is a great way, we thought, to raise children, and it has been. But knowing that we would have to have a geographic change in order to achieve that. And so that idea of farming with family, and also me going, I know I'm not the only mother in the world who would like to raise their children this way. And I know I'm not the only person who's not a millionaire who would like to have an opportunity to have land. And so the idea of like having our own family farm and also creating opportunities for other people to be able to access similar paradigms for their families kind of grew together. And the idea of teaching and helping people reacclimate from city life into more rural landscapes, and the idea of helping people who really who don't have economic resources, but have the will and the desire and potentially the talent and the work ethic to be able to achieve those things. So just kind of doing it ourselves alongside helping other people do it made sense.
What an adventure.
It is. That's a
Yeah.
great word for it.
And I am curious, like, how has that changed you inside out?
I feel like trying new things really changed me. I think sometimes when you're a parent, and you don't have to be a parent, but when you are, having a sense of responsibility for others, and that responsibility includes bringing in a certain amount of income to be able to sustain the lives, not just for yourself, but of other people. That can feel very constraining to your freedoms and making you, and I know many friends who have worries and concerns and, feeling like they have to kind of stay the course and stay in the box so that nothing gets messed up and nobody's life gets ruined because I made a bad decision. So that can be very confining, and so the idea of like, my husband and I just praying together, like, we want this thing. It's definitely stepping out on faith. There's nothing to say this is guaranteed. Nobody's, writing any guarantees. But like knowing that I had a partner that kind of like, spiritual partner and also a physical husband to say, try something new. It'll be okay. We will work together and we'll have each other's backs, and I got you. And yes, there might be hard times. Not everything we're going to do is going to work, but we will sustain each other and it'll be okay. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. That felt very freeing. And so the idea of like being transformed by new experiences, I wasn't limited to staying the course in a job that I didn't enjoy or that I didn't feel was viable for me in a way that was intellectually stimulating or fulfilling. I felt free, and that freedom has felt very empowering. Just seeing like I had the freedom, I was supported in making decisions and trying new things and taking risks, and that has paid off because we have experienced some success in this new realm that we've delved into, and we have had setbacks and we have had struggles, and there's been a whole learning curve because we were absolutely new to all of this. But ultimately, I feel strong and I feel successful and I feel able and I feel curious about what the next step is. And I'm excited about what the future will hold.
I had these questions prepared to ask you, but now I have so many more questions. Like,
Okay.
okay, if you feel like, like I wanna, will you give me an example of like a challenge and what really helped you like overcome? It sounds like a job interview question. I don't mean like a job interview question, but I mean really like,
I hate
you
that
know,
question as well.
in more
Example,
like,
what?
right? Yeah. No, but more like, what is it really like? Like, I think a lot of people have the dream, of like, oh, I'll, get a farm or I'll completely change my life. But like, no, what is it really like in reality where then you might take the leap, face, something, an obstacle, and then what helps you get through it and what comes out of that? I'm super curious.
Yeah, I think that an example is, in farming or in agriculture or any sort of land-based enterprise, there's so many expenses. I mean, the land
Mm.
itself, you could have a mortgage. There's inputs, if you have animals, you got to feed them. If you want to plant things and grow things, you got to buy the seed or the plants themselves. You have to have manpower, human power, labor to be able to manage everything and make everything kind of go the way it needs to go. And in order to do that, you need to have expertise and kind of know what you're doing and know how to treat the plant and the animals in a way that's going to be healthy for them. And then you have the weather, and you have to you can't predict what's going to happen, what kind of year you're going to have, and irrigation, and, not being able to have certain systems in, and things breaking down, and maintenance and all of those expenses. So like all of those sort of pulls on your resources have to be offset by some kind of revenue. And that just makes sense. We live in a capitalist economic system, which is horrible and very challenging for most people. But so you have to be like, okay, all of these resources are leaving. And now I have to, pay people, pay for things and feed things. And maintain equipment. And then that means I need to have some kind of source of revenue or sources of revenue to be able to pay for all those things, and potentially have, a gap between what I'm paying out and what I'm bringing in, so that you can have some sort of profit. So you're not scrambling to just, meet the needs at the very basic level. And so I think, so the idea that, we were like, okay, it's not just about, in farming, you can be a failure in a second if you put all your eggs in one basket. If you grow in one plant and there's some bug that likes that plant, and you have, you're totally wiped out. So the idea is kind of diversifying what you're doing, right? So we had this idea, okay, great. We're going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We'll have some education, we'll have some children, and provide some sort of service to be able to onboard kids and to create a new generation of want to be, kids who want to, be on the land and live, as farmers, and want to, carry forth the legacy of sustainable agriculture. So we'll do some education, and then we might have some farm stays and do this whole agritourism thing, and have places where people can stay and do immersives, or stay just for a little bit and kind of experience farm life to the extent that they want. And then we might sell some products. And so whether we are still doing the juice, or we have our duck and chicken eggs, or whatever kind of produce we want to sell. And so sort of a tourism and education and farm product sort of mechanism, and a little bit of like entertainment recreation. So we have an amphitheater. So we have like, okay, this is the spectrum, and it would be beautiful, and we have these dreams. And then you go, okay, we need to have a facility in order to have education, because kids can't just be outside the whole time to build this thing. So, we built this program, and we had, the past 7 years have had like at least 500 kids come through the farm, over the course of the year. And we have field trips, and we have a summer program, we have after school program. And so we have, trained teachers who come in, and then, and then the health department says, you need to have this many bathrooms for this many kids. So you can't have this kid anymore. You're not doing it. And you're doing this great, and you're doing this great, but you don't have enough bathrooms. So you need a new facility. And so we'll stamp you for this year, but by this time next year, you need one more, at least two more bathrooms in order to have this amount of kids. So you need to shrink your program. So we're like, oh, okay. And so we're working with that. And now we have to build, we have this plan. It's wonderful, but it requires money to build a whole facility. And so fundraising and trying to, get the resources. So building a program before you have enough infrastructure to actually accommodate, that was something we went through. And then we go, oh, it would be great if this whole field was grapes. We could do a whole like table grape viticulture type of thing. And any kid that wants to eat grapes, they can eat grapes. And if they want to make some juice, they can make juice. It'll be great. And then we bought all these grapes without planning exactly where they're going to go. And we lost a bunch of grapes that year. We poured a bunch of money into like, grape plants, which are not cheap, and fruit tree. And then we ended up getting goats, because somebody was like, do you want our goats? And then the goats ate up some grapes, and they ate up some fruit trees. So like, all of these, like when we put the cart before the horse and we have all these ideas and we end up implementing them before we're actually ready infrastructure wise to accommodate what those things are, we have been burned so many times. And it feels like, when are we going to learn our lesson? And I think maybe acknowledging the fact that part of our learning process is doing things wrong, like absolutely wrong. And then going, that really hurts. Like we didn't have that money to like just throw out the window and let the breeze take over, somewhere else. Like we didn't have it, but like now like, um, we know that we need to have this sort of development plan. We need to get that stamp from that entity. And now we have to work with the municipal government. Like we've learned so many things just from talking to our municipal governing body about what's allowable here infrastructure wise. And it took us 5 years to get them to okay the kitchen, that we're going to be doing the juice, and it'll be the facility that the education will be centered around. So the idea of working, not just implementing what you have in your head, but also bringing on the necessary partners to help you plan better, and like talking to people who grow grapes and talking to people who have goats before we receive a gift of beautiful goats, um, or talking to people who have done education programs before we start bringing out a bunch of kids. Um, we're learning that partnership is absolutely critical, and having mentorship and, input is absolutely critical to success. And I think that's a major lesson. And to answer your question, I feel like we are constantly just blowing it, and that is part of our process is just mistakes.
I really think like they I don't know who they are, but we're sold this idea that you just like you're gonna know how to do something, and it's like it's failure, failure, learn, learn, get it done. Oh, I'm a little bit smarter now. I mean, it's like that. If anybody waits to do what they like because they don't know how to do it, it's like they can wait forever. You're gonna learn, right? Yeah.
True. And I think what you're saying is true. I think too, it's a balance because there's a certain, like I believe in failing forward, right? The idea of failing forward, like you learn, like, but the more failure you have, the more you can build upon your knowledge and move forward. But I think there's a point to which too many failures, especially if they're close in and if they're really big failures, they can actually stymie your growth and
Mhm.
end up really being devastating to the ultimate vision that you have. And so kind of balancing, bringing wisdom before you start putting into play actions that are not vetted or likely to succeed based on, advice. I think there's a balance. Try new things, but also get the important input that's going to help you not fail so much that you won't be able to get up again.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how do you know when to give it a try?
Yeah, I think, I pray a lot. I think that's for me a key is like just taking time to put into words what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, the vision that I have, and like um articulating it in a way that is a request, because I know that, from you know experience, that there's more to the world than just the plants and animals and trees and people that we see. I feel like there's this whole spiritual side to life, and I feel like when I consult in a spiritual sense, and sort of talk to um you know a God that I know loves me and cares for me, and ultimately all these little busy little things I'm doing on earth don't really matter all that much, but that that I'm cared for, and that I can talk to um someone that cares about practical things, helps me to kind of let go of the kind of concrete outcome in a way that I'm not married to any specific, I can unmarry myself to a specific outcome and just be excited about exploring what could happen. Because I feel like when I'm in development mode with my creator, and I know that what I have in mind could be expanded much more significantly when you have a partner in a spiritual being, because they're not confined to the physical realm. And so I take that step knowing like, okay, I have an idea of what I want. Could you partner with me on this? What do you think? You know what's best. I'm willing to explore this. Could you please be with me during this wild adventure? And then I feel like I can release the tension of feeling like I have to be in control of the outcome. And then I feel more easy to kind of be in explore mode and try new things.
So much. You're sharing so much. Where you were sharing also about dealing with facilities, dealing with concrete things, I think that is something that we don't quite think about when we're in service businesses. Like
Hmm.
we really get quite disconnected from concrete maybe things, like I talk to people on Zoom, I might make a video. Like it's really a completely different experience when you're dealing with uh, substantial material things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that really struck me also when you were talking about that, because it sounds to me that there's also realization that's much more, again, concrete and real about how much we depend on each other.
Yes, I think that's also very key, and knowing that there are hidden partners. Like I will admit I went into this whole process of getting permission to build something new on my land. I viewed it as my land. I don't shouldn't have to ask your permission to do anything. If I'm creating something that's really going to benefit the community, I'm not destroying, I'm not clear cutting my forest and building a parking lot. Like I'm doing something really good. Like why are you making it hard? And I came into it going, like this is my daughter Hannah.
Hi.
I'm recording podcast. I know. Can you ask Papa? Thank you. Um, so I think I went in feeling like I had my dukes up, like I'm the one that's controlling what's happening here. And then they were like, actually, we're the governing body. There's certain things you're in a zone that's zoned agriculturally and residential. And if you want to do something commercial, we have to okay it. That's just how things work. And it was like, oh, we have to contend. And now, and I just see the beauty of travel. I went to Italy, your beautiful home country, and I met with this woman who had inherited this beautiful winery. In fact, a couple of wineries, and she has this wine label. She makes Brunello, and she let me know that the Italian government, she wanted to enclose one of these ancient Italian ruins, and the Italian government was like, there's a very specific way that we will allow that to happen. The Italian government and how they market sort of Italian tourism, they have a very specific way about how you can potentially modify those ruins. And so she wanted to put some doors on this old beautiful ruin, and then make it into some sort of tasting room with some sort of like, tourism oriented building. And so just putting two doors on this building took her 10 years to get through the Italian government approval process. And the way she stated it, she didn't say they held me up for 10 years. It was a big, horrible deal, and how dare they? Um, she said, what did she say? Instead of kind of being angry about it, she said, the Italian government has a certain way that they require you to behave, and to prove to them that you are going to do things in alignment with their values and how they have chosen to do things in Italy. And it took me 10 years to get their approval, and now I have their approval, and look at these beautiful doors. And so she's just said that, and like she said, they have standards. I had to prove that I would adhere to those standards. I adhered to those standards and I got my approval. And there now we have a new beautiful space that we can use and showcase to the world. And it helped me to say, there's a potentially a missed opportunity to understand what our municipal governing body here, our planning board, could offer us in terms of partnership. They're very knowledgeable. They have very strict standards about what they will allow. It is a very rigorous process to even get basic things approved, but it's because they have very specific standards of how things should occur. And I learned a lot along the way. And because I adhere to their standards, we're going to have this wonderful facility, and I look forward to seeing the actual fruits of those labors. And it was a collective effort on the part of many, many people. And it was a huge investment economically. And I think that was another sort of contentious thing where it's like, you know, it shouldn't be this expensive even to just get the basic approval, let alone the actual building process. It was so expensive just to get the engineers and the designers and the architects on board to and get them to do all the work and designing and drafting and working with them and getting, tweaking the plan and tweaking the plan again and changing the plan again in order to get the approval we needed. So it felt like, how disparity is created. The people who have, enormous resources to throw at something like that, just at the design process, are the ones that win, and those who don't have those type of resources end up not having their projects, being able to be funded and seen through to the end.
Yeah, you're bringing up a couple of things that I really wanted to ask you about. One is community, right? So, how are we with each other? What is
Mm.
community? And the other part is also like, what kind of communities do we want to create? And you're creating that address disparities and, help people and bring
Mm.
forth more justice.
I think that's such a complex and beautiful question. I think, community for me is about a diverse as possible array of people coming together, and aligning our visions in ways that support each other, and kind of putting aside our own, unique perspectives and honoring our unique perspectives, but also putting aside our personal interests in order to kind of support and benefit the vision and needs of others. For me, community is about sort of sacrificing the will and the individualism, um, that's centered around a singular entity, and really looking at the whole and how we can benefit the whole as members of a body. Um, and I think when we think like that and we think of community like that, we can kind of understand when we're being too hard on each other. I think when we kind of only see our way and we only see the way that we think things should be, and even if we're right in many ways, we're not really allowing other perspectives and other input to influence how we got our processes, and end up really being harsh and excluding or diminishing other people, which is for me the opposite of community. It's, community is about embracing and welcoming and inviting in rather than excluding and narrowing, our invitation to collaborate.
Yeah, when you're saying being right, I didn't even realize for many, many years how much I was oriented towards being right versus being connected,
Mm.
understanding, being curious. Like there's so many other things we could orient groups around or personal relationships around or a community, but I feel like we have such a default setting over being right. Right?
Yes.
Isn't that really weird?
Lack of humility and pride is I think probably the primary cause of war, and I mean, pride and sort of thinking that we're right and other people are wrong, and if everybody did things my way, would everything be better, like those, that's the cause of the most devastating, events and things that happen in our world. And so like you said, it's like it's not about being right. It's not about being better. It's not about me over you and me getting my way, or me having benefits at anybody's expense, or it's about listening, like you said. It's about being a part of something, being curious. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, or even being like, am I being loving, I just don't think most of us really realize we have that choice in the moment. It's like a blind conditioning thing of like being right, right? So it's like, I have to be right. And it's like, actually, sometimes it doesn't matter. You can still be right and they don't think you're right. And like,
What are you gonna do?
it
Are
doesn't
you
really
gonna
matter,
fight?
Like, it doesn't always,
Yeah.
it's like, uh, yeah. So to me, that was a really huge thing once I
Yeah.
discovered
Wouldn't you
that.
rather be wrong than to be in a fight with somebody? Wouldn't you rather be viewed as being as not winning the fight? Wouldn't you rather be connected and to honor the friendship? I mean, what for me, if a connection or relationship is at stake, I would much rather be the wrong party, right? Like,
Yeah, to me, a lot of the time, it doesn't even matter. It's like we're making it up like it matters, but it's like it doesn't really matter. Like there's so many other things to focus on, or um, so there's so many things that you're doing with your projects, and you mentioned generosity, you mentioned helping people who don't have certain means, or also like centering narratives of people of color, like give access to land. Will you give me an example or two of one of your initiatives?
yes, I'm always talking about Quarter Acre for the people, and so I'll give you one from there. We purchased a piece of land, and we're building a collective of mushroom growers and educators who are going to be collaborating on this 14-acre parcel of really heavily forested area, and we're working with the municipal government on what can be built there. We're trying to build housing. It might not be, we'll see what happens. But it's a new land project that people are going to cooperatively own as trustees of a new land trust, and I'm super excited about it. And it's people who grew up in cities like Baltimore and New York City, and two people who grew up on reservations, Indian reservations in New York State, who will be collaborating on this land and really bringing indigenous land empowerment and land knowledge, and Black folks and some Latinx folks who are going to be kind of this multicultural collaborative, which I'm super excited about. And we got some grant funding to purchase 2 more pieces of land, and hopefully we'll be able to build an intentional community on one or both of those. And so this project QAP, or Quarter Acre for the People, has been really fun to see new opportunities develop for people who had been kind of really systemically deeply separated from empowerment on land and separated from each other racially and economically. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And then Ubuntu Library, our literacy initiative, we're publishing our first book. And so Ubuntu Library, we gave out all the second graders in our school district here in Ithaca City School District got a copy of a book called In the Garden with Dr. Carver, and it's all about George Washington Carver and his amazing work with regenerative agriculture back in the 1800s and early 1900s. And it highlights his work. He was born enslaved and then went to school and was denied access to education until Iowa State welcomed him as an undergrad. He became this amazing agricultural scholar, taught at Tuskegee University and worked with Booker T. Washington and educated all these people on how to regenerate the land through planting and how to make different products from plants. And so we were really uplifting his life as somebody who taught people how to, do soil regeneration and feed communities really healthfully. So that's exciting. Our Khuba's a project called the Farming for Freedom Trail. We're having our second annual event. It's a 2-day event where we're going to have all farms by marginalized or disadvantaged farmer owners who are going to open up their farms and have community members out. It'll be a big party. And 11 farms are going to participate over 2 days, and it'll be a great way to kind of bring people from out of area to a beautiful region and make more connections with farms who would love your support.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, two last questions. One is how do you do it all?
Uh,
How do you do
um,
it all, you know?
I don't do it all. That's the great thing. I don't do it all. And yeah, God does all of it, but I feel like I get to be a part of some really cool things. I get to dream up really exciting projects, and then I have some really great friends that I work with who help it all go. And I feel like it's always been collaborative. So I don't do it all. I feel like I get to be a part of a lot of different interesting things, just because of the benefits of friendship and collaboration and support and partnership, and just being a part of this beautiful world where there's all these amazing opportunities to do new things. And I feel um, I feel like it's pretty amazing what I get to be a part of, but it's definitely not me doing it all.
That's amazing. That's still amazing to me. So, yeah, and it requires, I think that is a transformational shift right there, you know, learning how to work on bigger projects. If you want to create something really big, there's a whole lot of learning about bringing people in and sharing and, you know, all of that. Maybe another podcast episode. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep you here.
Yes, no, that's it. I mean, that's it. It's like, how can you, I think that learning how to be a good partner, learning how to find the right people to work with, it's been a big learning lesson for me, how to be the type of partner I want to be in partnership with, and also how do I find the people who really are invested and who are passionate about the things that I'm working on, has been a wonderful journey.
All right, then will you give us one tip about it?
I would say, um, take a chance on people. If they prove that they're not, a good fit, you can always, move your separate ways. I would say, think outside the box. Also, talk about your values, talk about, what you believe in, where there's connection and where, there's some non-negotiables. I don't work with people who put people down or violent or threaten other people. I just don't work with people like that. And that was a learning lesson for me where, I have very high standards for integrity, because I feel like I bring a high level of integrity to my work, and I believe and I support people like deeply. And I do expect that back. Like I expect people to bring that same level of care and commitment and humility and listening. And when somebody says, Chris, I don't feel like you did that right, or I wish you had done it this way, I gotta listen. And I do expect other people to listen. Like if we don't listen to each other, nothing really goes well. I love encouragement, and so I give it a lot. I'm like, I love to build people up and help people see how amazing they are. And I love it when other people are like, that was great. Like, I am so hopeful because that's something that we did. Like, I love to affirm each other. So, I would encourage you, look for the people who build you up, and make sure yourself that you are building other people up. And that way you'll be able to much more closely align to the values that you have
I
and be
love
happy.
it. I love it. I'm so on board with that. Yeah. All right, the last question that you kind of answered already, but it's a bit of a tradition now. I ask everybody, so maybe you can give us, your thoughts again or different thoughts, which is what's inner wisdom to you? What does
Hmm.
inner wisdom mean to you?
I think, yeah, I always go back to the Bible. I think inner wisdom to me is understanding that I don't know everything, understanding that I don't know everything, and that there is a being that knows everything and that I can be connected to that person. And that in humility, I can get a lot farther than assuming that I have to know everything or have every ability or have every tool in my toolbox, but I can have the humility of knowing I know certain things, but I don't know everything. I can learn new things and I can be connected to people who know things that I don't know. And then ultimately I can understand that there is a holy, loving being that knows everything and cares 100% for me and everybody else. And I can be trusting of that being. And for me, knowing that human beings are fallible, but that loving them is entirely worth it. Um, for me, that is wisdom. Knowing that, yeah, here on earth we're very limited, but there is a sphere of life that that exists, and that's where wisdom comes from.
It's beautiful. Do you think it makes you more patient and forgiving
Oh
to
yes.
understand that?
Oh, 100%.
All right,
Like
because that's what I was feeling.
it's like, oh my gosh, we can have such high, I know I have this type A personality sometimes where it's like I have all these high expectations and this is my standard. And it's like, no, 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 no. You don't even meet that. So stop. Like, be patient. You expect patience. You need so much patience. Be patient and be loving no matter what. No matter
Mm.
what. We all need that. And that's more motivating for goodness than anything else. So yeah, patience comes from knowing you don't know everything.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you, Krista, so much. Like, it's been such a beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Aurora. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And it's so inspiring just to see that you are inspiring others for their better lives and living their best lives and pursuing things that they wouldn't dream of doing. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Well, you inspire me. You inspire me from the first moment I met you. So you've been one of
That
my big inspirations.
And I have to say, I thank God for the fact that we're still in each other's lives, and
Right?
I'm so proud to be your friend.
Yeah, same. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Oh, I don't want to cry now. Okay. If people wanna get in touch with you, of course I'll have things in the description of the podcast, but anything you wanna say, if people wanna, be involved or learn more or anything like that.
If somebody wants to get in touch with me, you can email me at Christa Núñez at gmail.com, ChristaNunez at gmail.com, or you can go to I think on our social medias for Learning Farm,
I'll
Ithaca.
list it. I can list it there.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you can click, there's some buttons you can click there. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me via email. It will be great.
Yeah. And thank you again so much. And I'm gonna stop the recording right now.
Okay, all right.